We're going to go into the area of complete happiness, joy, wisdom, understanding, kindness for the rest of your life after this half hour, whatever, so by discussing the fact that all mystically imbued people, all the great names we've known spiritually from Jesus Christ to, and it goes on, and thousands of names of saints, and people have experienced this very pleasurable, unique experience called cosmic consciousness. And I'm going to discuss today the fact that you don't have to live in the world anymore. It shouldn't be a problem for you when you understand this very deep condition. I say deep, but it's simple. It's lighter than air. It's kinder than a baby's smile. It's sweeter than sunshine in the morning. More than anything, it's you. It's the original you. In Buddhism, they call it the original you. It's meaning before time, before circumstance, before the world was, you were. Before churches saw lights or names were named, you were. And so let's go right into it. There is a God consciousness condition where you are God. I don't say this lightly. It's beyond all the theology, all the religion, all the spirituality. There's a simple condition of God consciousness, and that's why I say the great ones whose names we're familiar with throughout human history, and spiritually speaking, knew that they were not in this world. So collectively, a few of us, 30, 60 million people in the next, in the very near future, will get together and we'll experience this for one another, and the world won't be. It's so simple. If you are mystically imbued, if you are inclined to spirituality, these words will make absolute sense because you'll feel them. You'll know them to be true. We each have certain sub-personalities. I have to act a certain way if I'm on the jiu-jitsu floor, if I'm out with friends, and then if I'm home alone, which I spend most of my time just sitting in my chair recently because I'm locked in to fulfill this destiny pattern that God gave me. And it's the same destiny pattern that God gave you. You're not supposed to take it anymore. And it's through wisdom and understanding. First of all, quieting your mind, your emotions. There are thousands of ways of doing this. Not reacting to any of your thoughts, your conditions, the world around you, your past, present, or future. There is no time. Time is simply a persistently stubborn illusion. So when you're in love, you're holding the hand of the one you love, you're walking astride a pond, it's a sweet midnight kiss. That's the touch, in the lips, that the world disappears. I'm talking about true love. It's a state of wonder, and you know that you're born to be happy and to receive love. It's quite enormous for a mortal being in this world to allow that thought in 24 hours a day. But that's the goal of deep spiritual awareness. It's why we meditate, why we pray, why we believe, why we trust and care. So getting right back to the idea of God consciousness that many spiritual people throughout history have been aware of, where the world, it takes no avail. In the mind, who cares? And so we're not to react to anything in the socio-political world. The book that my friend Susan put together, After Time, get a copy of that. It will cover all these details in a magnificent and beautiful spiritual, poetic way, or the other book, Island of Hearts, if you want to, but you don't have to read, to study, even to pray. You just have to simply be aware of what I'm about to say. It's a matter of training yourself to not react. I'm assuming that all of us have practiced some breathing techniques, some simple meditation, something. that's allowed us to know we can become quiet. If you're an artist, as soon as you're in front of the easel, everything is brand new. Everything is sharpened by the tools you gained over the years. We each have sub-personalities. I've been working with a buddy, JB, for years. For 40 years I've known this guy, and he's very, very, very spiritual. So sometimes he'll have something going on in his head, and I'll simply be very quiet and ask him what's going on, and he'll relate whatever it is. And he feels someone listening to him in a very quiet way without reacting, so it allows him to quietly look at his own issues. A little later on, there are things coming at us, people dwelling on you. That's what Satan is, that's what evil is, that's what the whole world is. If you don't look at people that way, the world will disappear. This happens in convents, in temples, monasteries, where people are deeply, deeply, not religious, but spiritual. There's nothing to react to in the halls, walking to the dinner hall, raking the leaves. There's no one there. You might be 112 monks in the temple, and I've certainly experienced this, and no one's there. So there's nothing to react to. There are no sub-personalities. You've worked on your stuff. So if you're aware first of getting rid of your own sub-personalities, how you're different in different circumstances, right? So just quietly look at them, see how that personality developed over the years. If I'm around tough guys, I have to be that or this or that, the other. And if I'm around intellectuals, I'm that. If I'm around spiritual people, I float. And even when I'm around the worst people in the world, to be honest with you, I float. Because I don't react, I don't take it in. I live beyond time or circumstance. I'm saying this for all of us who are spiritual, and this is the goal of this spiritual empowerment session, is to know that we don't have to be here, and it's in consciousness. So if people are dwelling on you, discover who it is, and you just quietly, it's not looking for it, you're very quiet, and it will come to you. I'm saying very quiet, you know that you're in a God-conscious condition. And as soon as you're there, I mean, you have to be somewhat adept at spirituality to understand these words. As soon as you're there, you know that the thought of God or yourself or any separation doesn't exist. You've done years of prayer, reflection and contemplation, and just, it's okay to be nothing. And in that state of nothingness, there's a warmth and a humanity and a kindness that's endlessly transcendent of every human emotion. But it begins with that midnight kiss. Just, you're worthy, not of love simply, but of Godness, of God consciousness. So work on your stuff like my buddy John JB did, and then because he cleared up his case, and I can't see the world. When I was in my early 20s, I could tell you what weight somebody was, what they did in 1922. I could tell you everything about their personality and their beliefs and who was around them, and you could see it all. But see, that's very easy for someone to be psychic of anything in the world. That's the opposite of spirituality. So you have to give that up at a point. And you lived here long enough. When I was born with this state of God consciousness, this is for you, because all of us who are spiritual have always been spiritual. Somewhere in our early 20s, it began when we were 3 or 4. This incident happened, or that traumatic incident, and we have to become this person, this young lady or this young man. And the more spiritual you are, the more prone you are to get caught in these little traps of your personality being not perfect. So my friend JB, he got there, and then because I can't see the world anymore, like to be psychic about, I can do it if it's needed, I'll instantly see it, but it's like, it's just simply, I cannot imagine that anyone thinks this is here. It's unimaginable to me. Sometimes it's horribly painful, but I never let on to that, and just, oh. And then I decide my place in it, so there's something behind it. something dwelling on you always. It's called the devil. And it can come through all the different people in the world in your life, and some of it can be good stuff. It makes you a little excited. But a little excited or a little interested, that's not God. God is a quietude, a simplicity, a warmth, a generosity of spirit. And you have to extrapolate that out to a wonderfully refined purity of experience and consciousness. It's not weak. It's God. God looking out from you, experiencing your life. It's quite wonderful. So I'll use my buddy JB to see the world for me. I'll say, well, this person is dwelling on so-and-so, what, and they're affecting your business or your life or your family. And I'll be very quiet, and he's learned to be very quiet, and so he will look at this person or this individual quietly for me. So I'm in a God-conscious state, and he's in a state where he can see the world. And if you get there, like people working on all these different, I don't know what they call them, all these different psychic formats of people's identity and beings and things, and they'll use it to control people. And this steps into the area we began with. When you leave this body, if you're not completely spiritual, the next step is just as dumb as this. It's just a little different. It's like a little turning of a kaleidoscope, you know, it's just, oh. So the people out of body are lost in a world there. Like you saw, the person just died, and what do they think about dying? And it's like, there's no one died. No one will ever die. So you very quietly be aware of these other worlds, these other places that are simply in your psyche or in their psyche. The point being, if you're completely spiritual, these realms that are transcendent of the everyday but are not transcendent spiritually, it's a change of environment. It's like a change of clothes. I remember one time I mentioned that my dad was enlightened, so every now and then, and he had a hard time here, and a couple of years in the spirit after leaving here, he let go of all the tragedy of this world. And I remember many times I put on my shoes in the morning, and it wasn't me, it was my dad putting on his shoes. There's no separate, I wasn't thinking I'm Robert Rosenberg or he's Herbert Rosenberg. It's like, because in my consciousness, there's not a Robert Rosenberg, there's a God consciousness, there's a beauty, there's a purity, there's a simplicity all the time. When I'm around people, I have to act according to what's going to go on, or I can change it. If I have to be somewhere, I'll sit quietly for a little while before, and I'll walk in there, and everything will work for me. All the people and personalities and circumstances will be perfect. Or I can do some spiritual work in the middle of a hellacious environment. And that's always happened. So if you know this and know not to react to any of it, then eventually I'll say, who's behind this? And my buddy JB will say such and such, and what are they doing? Okay, and I'm in a God conscious state, and my friend's in a spiritual conscious state, but looking at the world, because he can still see it somehow, and see the different realms before and after birth. And then he'll translate to me and go, oh, and I'll let it go, and he'll let it go, and so we let it go, and it never was. I was born in a condition where the world does not exist. It had to be beaten into me. If you're spiritual, you're in the world today, we all collected here very purposely, and it doesn't exist to us. But it's certainly worked harder on us than the average person, hasn't it? Stop reacting to it, and it won't exist. It's a pure state. It's beyond love. It is the other end of the rainbow. But it's not beyond the human heart, which is the birthplace of God. Quietly reside in your heart, knowing that this is a God state, so that things, the conditions, and neighbors, things will change. And things that'll rattle your chain, you'll know that this thing called Mephistopheles, Satan, is behind it all. And when you discover that, then you're not working just with sub-personalities anymore. You're working with the causal ingredient of all pain. Anything that fascinates you in the world, that's the devil. And as soon as you lose that sense of being taken in, of being interested in anything, you can be interested in a person, but when you're in a higher state of consciousness to do a healing, as I do all the time, and I'm not talking about being fascinated, it's interested, you're in a quiet, the purity of your emotions being interested in someone is, it's a little transcendent of love. You're there to heal, you're there, and you'll feel the mind of God looking out from you all the time. And I say mind, I'm talking 100 quadrillion trillion times more simple and pure and quiet and warm than anyone could imagine that to be. But all of us have had spiritual experiences, allowed yourself to let this happen, and just listening to this today, this is a spiritual empowerment session. So one of my buddies, I had the Karmapa, whatever, in India, up in Talopa's Cave, do a spiritual empowerment, one he hadn't done in 300 years, according to the nuns and the monks. And it was on the Buddha of infinite compassion. And so, of course, for 5 months after that, wherever I was at, I'd be back in the States or in New York or Philly or London. I'd sleep at night and I'd see the monks on their bicycles riding through my dreams all day and night, and it was just floating and flying. So it was an empowerment. So although I was always enlightened, it was just someone gives you that, you'll experience it. This is a spiritual empowerment. My friend the Karmapa, or my monks and the nuns, and Jesus Christ or Moses or Maimonides or whatever. And we'll be there with you. You'll experience over the next few months. It'll happen. It's always happened in people that I deal with. It's never not happened. It will happen. And then when you do it for someone you find worthy, not to everyone and anyone, and then when you get set up sometimes and it's not the right person, you're going to enjoy it. It hurts, and then you'll enjoy it because you'll learn something. And you'll get a little more subtle, and your ability to communicate with other people will be much more healing, much more full of an embrace to those that you find worthy. In other words, it's not for everyone, spirituality. But it's always Satan behind it. So if you get to the causal factor, and I'll invite Satan now, which I've never done, into this, and he's dancing like all over on the clouds to try to, can't get in. Doesn't mean he won't kick me in the back of the legs sometime today, but that's fear-based and gone. So in the most subtle areas of your human consciousness, of your emotions, of your life history, everything will make sense, and you'll see how you've been set up to feel like the spiritual ones. We all feel we're a little guilty, we should do a little better, we should be a little kinder, and that's a lie. We've been conditioned to that by this dark force that owns this world. And this world, again, is infinitesimal, infinitely smaller than the smallest atom, infinitesimally smallest particle of an atom. I'm saying, as one of millions of people who are God conscious, it's a universe of light. That's simple. And this world, the perception of it being here is so juvenile. It's so silly. So unnecessary. Yes, the pain, the trauma of it all, I've given my life. I know 1,000 ways to heal people, to work with people, that I developed on my own, or met with people, or backed many people up to do it. And it's not you. It never was. Be whole. Be free. I will be with you forever. God, your mother, your best friend. None of us are going to pass. The world is infinitesimal. It's in consciousness, and if you stop reacting to it, the personalities, the sub-personalities, the people dwell on you to make you feel uncomfortable, and you discover it all, you work on your case, Best thing for me is like I'll write down a couple things on paper or things that affect me, and it's gone. And you don't write it down. The emotion, write it down, and it's outside of yourself. That's the whole idea of the healing method. It's never you. It's never been you. So as soon as you put it outside of your thinking mind, you'll be elated, relaxed, and happy and free. So find ways to do that for yourself. There are thousands of spiritual enhancement techniques available to us all. And like I say, get a hold of one of those books, After Time or Island of Hearts by Robert Rosenberg. And I'm setting up a website next week or something. Rob's doing it, my buddy here. And we'll do that. I've been hidden consciously for 50 years, and I'm ending that this week, this day, tonight, whatever, and make this more available to people. I had to understand every conceivable trap of the devil. When I was 20, I sat down to write a book about God, because I had this God-conscious state. I was home on leave from the Marine Corps before some activity somewhere, and sat down to write the great book about God, and the only thing that came to me was Discourse on Darkness. And I'm like, what the hell is that? I had to sit it there, and I couldn't write a book. And then years later, when I started teaching people in the city, I realized that all I've gone through, I could make people feel God all the time, all day, wherever I went, whatever I did. And I was aware of the dark side, but I would do my thing, and then and then they would invite me to their home because they got blessed. I would heal, help, fix. They got a new house, a marriage, or this, and they were inviting me to their ceremonies and the nights on Saturday nights where I taught my class, and then I realized how, yes, I can make people feel God and wonderful, but it wasn't that. It's the temptations that people have that are so easy to fall into, the trap. So I spent the last 30 years working on methods to decontaminate the human mind, non-evaluative therapies, and on and on and on. So there's nothing wrong with you. You will be blessed, you are blessed, you will be healed, be whole, be free forever. And all of it is a lie, and there's nothing behind it. I've had every circumstance you could imagine, and more maybe than most people, that come at me. I've been twisted and torn by governments, by this, by that, and I'm the most innocent human being that ever walked the earth. I'm simply saying we don't escape it, and the more open and spiritual you are, the more it's going to trap you. 2 girls liked me one time. It turns out they're rich and their families did this. I'm like, what? 2 years later, I find out I'm in all kinds of trouble for something that never happened or existed. You know what I'm saying? I'm revealing something that was very painful for me. And there have been 10,000 of those circumstances. And so, you got a good heart. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't have any issues. You don't have any problems. Let go of all your fears, and God will sit with you when you sit. And one day, after a few months, and you'll be feeling this empowerment session move through you, you'll feel the monks on their bicycles up in northern India, Tibet, whatever, that's how they got around. You are Jesus Christ. You are Gautama Buddha. You're part of an eternal order of priests, nuns, of holy ones. You're here to end the trauma for those minds that believe the world exists. You will fulfill your mission. You are a holy personage. You are a great soul. You are the end of all the madness, all the pain, all the trauma in the whole world forever. That's your destiny. You will fulfill your spiritual destiny. So with the erratic nature of the dark side coming at you in the next few months, and then feeling this enormous, unimaginable beauty of the Spirit that will touch you here and there during these next few months, you'll see the difference and realize the absurdity of the force of temptation, and you'll see it in the very subtle levels and the enormous levels. Like I've escaped death in ways that, just so close that it can't be, and I knew God was with me. And early on, when I had my Star of David, my gold Star of David around I knew nothing could kill me. And nothing can kill you, nothing can hurt you, nothing can harm you, because you are this consciousness. And so when enough of us gather together in this world in the near future, there'll be no world. You won't live here. You live alone in your spiritual environment, as I've lived all my life and all my lives. And I say my lives, I can remember being this or that, the other, but at the same time, I remember because I remember being Abraham Lincoln and Khalil Gibran, but at the same time, at one time, Whitman watching in one of his books, watching how, my father, anyway, it was a beautiful book, poetry about his seeing Lincoln and catching his eyes and the great spiritual experience he had from seeing an illumined person and on a mission. But then again, Walt Whitman was enlightened, so they were one consciousness. Khalil Gibran, Jesus Christ, Father Abraham, Elijah, John the Baptist, they're all the same person, the person of God. You are the person of God. So your destiny is larger, more inclusive, more fulfilling, more rich than a gold miner's dreams. You're pure, you're whole, you're intact, you're free, you're capable, you're divine, you're powerful. Be very clear. You're smarter than every human being you've ever known. The world is the illusion, and that's part of the fascination. I remember when I sat in the woods starting to fight the dark force, all of a sudden I read people that were great architects or this and in science would come to me, and I know something, so I had to know that all of that is a lie. And beautiful people have beautiful experiences in the arts and the sciences and whatever, and every relationship, building, creating. And what I'm saying is, get behind all of it. The world is the illusion, like the Buddha said, like every spiritual illumined person knows, which is what we're talking about. So no one knows anything more than what you know. What you know is so valuable. You can heal the minds and souls and bodies and beings and relationships of everyone you know. No degree in the world can touch that. You can drive a truck 20 years and be very capable on the roads, and there are no trucks or roads or drivers. There's just this pure state of awareness that you will come to. You'll be touched by it in the next few months. This is a spiritual empowerment session. And then you will pass this on. And you'll become more pure, more kind, more gentle, more aware, and unimaginably wise, especially for this generation, which is so lost that it's actually humorous. You don't have to partake in the socio-political atmosphere. Someone talks about this political figure, that, just don't even give it anything. People say things they made are so nuts, and they, like in secret, while we're having a good conversation about such and such, and I know not to react to it this way or that way, just keep it going, so I can move back to a healing space. So if I've been doing this all these years, and there are thousands of people and thousands of letters and cards I got in, back in the day when they did that, and now I get these weird little things, but it's yours to partake of the heavenly nectar of divine love and grace. You have the healing power of God now. There's nothing that Jesus Christ did that he said you would do much greater things. The Buddha sat quietly. I sat in the Deer Park in India where he had his university 2,500 years ago, and it was still there. If you're spiritual, my buddy John, I just It's still there. There's just a little bit of a wall left and so forth. But you feel it, you see it. If you're a monk, as I was at that time, I've always been all my life, and the world doesn't exist. And they said the monk goes over the wall. So it doesn't mean a monk, in other words, that's a funny statement from the East, because you're a human being no matter what. Which is why I left the mountains there, because I knew I could communicate this, and everyone was human. I could see all the sub-personalities and different even lamas and monks that they hadn't worked on certain issues, and I was very disdainful of all the hippie girls who would come there and they would treat them like they were rock stars, like they were John Lennon, rather than a monk. And that led many a monk astray. But if you know God directly himself, the actual God of the universe, looks out from your eyes, this world will hold no power over you. And it's very secretive, very quiet, very kind, very private, very mystical. It's very you. Isn't it you? You're the purest thing that ever was. You're kinder than a midsummer morning. Please be free. Allow the healing grace of God to flow through you to all that you love and care for. You're not going to remake the world. You're not going to improve it. It's going to dissolve with your touch, with your hand, with your heart. Let there be pain no more. That the mystery of God should be finished. You are destined to spiritual greatness. You will feel the next few months here and there, and see all the in-between bullshit, and you learn to not react to it and carry it out to its logical focus, which will be eternal joy and happiness, and will live in the land of the divine kingdom. Because it's yours. It's your birthright. You have the deed to eternity. It's the purity of your heart. Thank you for listening. God bless your mission. Thank you.